I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. You will have suffering in this world. Be courageous. I have conquered the world. This is John chapter 16, verse 33. Revelation 2, verse 7 says, anyone who has an ear should listen to what the Spirit says to the churches. I will give the victor the right to eat from the tree of life, which is in God's paradise. These are two amazing verses. I just love seeing them together, to read them together, because it gives us hope. These verses are filled with hope. The interesting thing that I saw, though, today in John chapter 16, verse 33, was that so many different things going on in this verse. First, Jesus saying, I have told you these things. He's told us things. That means we should listen to them, as it talked about in the verse in Revelation. We should listen to what the Spirit said to the churches, but we should also listen to what Jesus has told us all through the New Testament. And even the things about Jesus in the Old Testament. We need to listen. But Jesus is specifically saying here that, listen to me. I've told you these things so that you can have peace. In this world, you're going to suffer. You're going to have suffering. You're going to have trials. You're going to have temptations. You're going to have failures. All these things are going to happen in this world. This world is not a nice world, so to speak. God created a perfect world, but sin came into the world through man and caused us this big issue, this big problem. Jesus then died on the cross to deal with that situation. But the world is still evil. The world is still hard because not everybody is a Christian. The world is, the earth itself is still under the curse. So we're going to have trials, we're going to have tribulations, and we're going to have sufferings. And Jesus makes that very clear. It's talked about so many times in the New Testament. We see through the disciples and what they went through. Life is not easy. And Jesus wants us to understand it's not easy. But, and I love that word, but, that means something's about to change. Even though it's not easy, we can still have peace, he's telling us. We can have peace. We don't have to live with anxiety. We don't have to live with fear. We don't have to live with worry. We can have peace. And he goes on to say, be courageous. In other words, we can have courage. We don't have to cower in fear in the corner. We don't have to just be worried about everything and fear life and fear people and fear this world and fear Satan. We don't have to fear. We could be courageous. We can live our life to the fullest. We can live our life abundantly in the middle of horrible circumstances, in the middle of suffering. We see people like Paul in the Bible. They lived an abundant life. And why? Because that life was focused on Jesus. But why focusing on Jesus? Why focusing on God? How can that be? How can that change everything? It's because Jesus has won the victory. Jesus has conquered the world. And we're supposed to imitate Christ. We're supposed to live like him. We're supposed to exhibit his characteristics. We can live victoriously. That doesn't mean everything's going to go easy for us and all of a sudden we're going to have an easy life. No. But we can live in peace. Living in peace is victory. We can live courageously. Living courageously is victory. We can live a life that makes a difference for the kingdom of God. That's living in victory. By serving God, by in the middle of every circumstance, allowing God to use that circumstance to help us to minister to other people, to help us to use our circumstances to draw other people to him. That is living a life of victory. And Revelation tells us then in that verse in chapter 2, verse 7, that if we listen to what God tells us, and Jesus is telling us something here, but if we listen to what God tells us and we are victorious, we understand that our future is bright. You see, that's the amazing thing. No matter what happens here on this earth, in this life, it's going to end. There is an end to this world. It's an end to our life here. And to live victoriously for Jesus, to live victoriously for God, to live victoriously in peace, to live victoriously with courage, in living an abundant life. It says that we will be given the opportunity, we will be given the privilege to eat from the tree of life, the very tree that God told Adam and Eve they could not eat off of, because that would have given them immortality at the wrong time. We will have that. And we have that in Jesus. If you're a child of God, you are immortal. This life may end, but you're going to continue on in heaven, in paradise, as Revelation tells us, with God. This is a great hope that we have. Jesus is telling us all this stuff. And if we listen, see, that's the key. We need to listen and live like victors. We need to live a victorious life. We can't live like losers. We have to live with peace. We live with courage. We live as victors and not in fear and anxiety as losers. God has a perfect end for us, and that end will continue through all of eternity as we walk with Jesus and walk with Him.